So I appreciate everybody jumping on to this live webinar with Josh Biesinger. He is one of our founders here at Pasture Holdings, and he is probably on paper our smartest guy with your MBA in market research and things that come with it. As always, these things are interactive. We do have questions and answers you can put in. We will answer them either as we go, or I will do a cleanup at the end to make sure we have everything in place. I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint so you can see it and kind of as we walk through it. And this is going to be a really exciting one for me, is because I love the idea of taking what we do and going head to head with what other people do inside the fund world. And multifamily has been splashed across the internet, splashed across your Facebooks, your social medias, your Instagrams, your TikToks, about being the only way you can passively invest in real estate. And we don't believe that's true. We've developed a product here with the passive note portfolio that is a great opportunity for people. And so we like to see how it backs up and compares against the other products out there. So let me get this shared screen so we can see that. All right, here we go. So multifamily versus land investing. First, we're going to compare multifamily investments and land investments. We're going to learn directly from a seasoned professional who have mastered the art of investing and are currently invested in both multifamily and land. And we're going to get personalized advice during our questions and answers session here. And then the cool thing about this is we are going to show real numbers since we started our fund and having this in the passive note portfolio, and the same dollar amount competing against it and what they've done in the past. Now, the past doesn't necessarily dictate the future, but it's nice to see where we can compare apples to apples and how we can deleverage risk and put us in a position to make sure we get that passive income. So who is Pasture Holdings? You've kind of seen our faces around. You got myself, Justin Sleva. I am the founder, CEO, and fund manager. Trevor Probant's listening in the crowd. He is one of the founders, the president, and the chief marketing officer. And our guy on here today in the hot seat, which he doesn't get on the screen much, but he is an integral part of us. He's one of the founders and chief operating officers, Josh Biesinger. And Beth Pianori, she is in the crowd as well. We love her. She's a partner and the general manager. She's the glue that holds us all together and the talent that puts all of this out for y'all to have a professional thing to look at. So multifamily versus land is a popular question. The apartment syndication, or like I said, are splashed across Facebook, making bold claims. And we're going to ask the question, does it really live up to the hype today? And, many of our investors are accredited investors, and that's what they get seen so much. It's so far out there. So today we're going to talk to Josh. We're going to ask him some questions, have him kind of talk about his strategy in multifamily, why he did it, what he's done in it, and what it's done good and bad, because we want to know both. And then we want to compare with this interview. We want to compare and see what's the right fit for you. So I'm going to introduce Josh. Like I said, he on paper is probably our smartest guy. He's got an MBA in marketing research. That's statistical analysis. He's founded many companies, oil and gas, real estate investment companies, began real estate investing in 2010 in single family homes, expanded his real estate investing into land and commercial real estate in 2017 and 2019 respectively, and is currently invested across the gamut of what type of investing you do as real estate investing. So there's no better person to answer these questions for us that's internally on our team. And then I would challenge the fact across the multifamily syndication niche, and I can prove that. And, if you've known me for any time, I like to put my money where my mouth is. So Ashcroft Capital is one of the best syndicators out there in multifamily space. And here's our boy right there. If you can't see this, big and proud, he is the cover boy for Ashcroft with his lovely daughter. And so when I say Josh is the best person to ask these questions to, I mean it. So Josh, I'm still waiting on my autograph for that, but welcome to this. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the returns and everything. But I want to ask you, when did you begin investing in multifamily apartments and what drew you to it?
Okay, so my very first deal I ever did actually was with Ashcroft, and that was in 2019.
Okay.
And I actually looked into getting into it for different reasons than most people.
Okay.
I had actually done really well on a bunch of land subdivides and things like that. And what drew me to it initially was the tax savings based on depreciation.
Okay, so cool.
Um,
So the tax savings on depreciation, do you get that only as a real estate professional, or do you get it if you have a W-2 job and you're not a real estate professional?
well, it's a little bit of both. If you just have a regular job, they don't like to tell you this, but there's caps on it, so you don't get to
Okay.
use very much of it.
Okay, cool.
Now I do as a real estate investor,
Okay.
so most people don't. But another big thing about that is, and I don't know if a lot of people wear this, is that was all because of the Trump tax plan when
Okay.
he was in office, and it's slowly being phased out. You could do bonus depreciation
Okay.
and at 100%, and that was for a few years, and then it dropped down to 80%, and
Okay.
now this year it's 60%.
Okay.
So that even that is going away
Oh,
now. There's a bill in Congress that has gone through the House of Representatives that has passed that will start that back at 100, but it's locked up in the Senate.
okay.
So
Okay.
right now it's not looking so great. So for me, one of the main reasons of investing in multifamily is slowly being phased out.
Okay. So if now that that's gone, what would be another benefit somebody would invest in multifamily? Like why would you do that if that
Okay.
what that opportunity wasn't there?
Well, you do have the chance for oversized returns.
Okay.
And I really like how it's structured because they give you, or you're supposed to get monthly distributions. So you
Okay.
can get that every month. And then me personally, I'm someone who likes to invest my money and maybe spend a little bit of it, but I always want to grow.
Okay.
So you can, every month you can take your distribution, but when they sell the asset, that's when you get a larger part, or you're supposed to get a larger part of your profit. And
Okay.
then you can roll that into the next one. So you're not, you're still growing, but you get to enjoy some of that money as well.
Okay. So monthly distributions, you get that. They sell, you get a big chunk back, and then you can roll it over. When you roll it over, they do what 1031 exchanges. So you kind of kick the can of taxes down the road as well. So you're creating some generational wealth.
Well, hopefully you can. If they have a 1031 available at that time,
Okay.
you can. And I'd say so far for me, it's probably been 50-50. Half the
Okay.
times they offer something, but if they don't offer anything or they're not able to find a deal, well, then you can't do that.
Wow. So that's kind of one of those myths that's thrown out there that, hey, you're going to 1031 everything, never have to pay taxes on it. And you're just going to keep growing this ball of wealth to give to your kids one day.
Yeah, because the way it's set up is, they buy that apartment complex in an LLC and you're getting a percentage of that.
Okay.
Well, if you 1031, it has to be with that LLC. You can't just take your money out and go put that in a single family house or somewhere else. It doesn't work like you can't do that. It has to be in that original LLC that they control.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. So I've got up here for everybody to see multifamily versus land investors, promises and actual returns. And this is your holding. So, and I appreciate you being honest with us and showing and sharing those numbers, because a lot of people don't talk about what they actually hold and stuff. They kind of, oh yeah, I've got a holdings, and you don't know if it's 100 grand or if it's 500 and in your case 5.5 million that you've built up to this into that. And it says right here, I'm going to kind of summarize it for us. It's invested in multifamily 25 apartment complexes at 5.5 million. The preferred distribution, meaning that's what they told you they were going to pay you annually, but they're going to pay you out monthly. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's an average number because usually that number starts out. Well, in today's market, I'm seeing deals where it starts out at 1 or 2%. The highest I'm seeing is 4%, and then each year it's supposed to grow. So that 8% is on average because
Wow.
a lot of these ones I got into were years ago. So that's about on average where they should be by now.
Okay, great, great. So the expected annual distribution is $440,000. I got a little fat quick on my thumb there with the comma, but 440,000, and that's a monthly distribution is $36,600. And it says actual distribution month of May was $5,500. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And that number does vary a little bit because right now a lot of these syndications they're just bleeding. So
Okay.
sometimes they may have a little bit of money left over at the month, so they can pay a little, and then other months it's zero. And
Wow.
so
Okay,
it,
so
it
I want to spend some time on that number real quick because I'm mind blown right now. So when you went into these deals, they signed you signed up, you signed your DDMs like you would do with us, and then they said, "Hey, your expected return is what we're they're selling you this idea that you're going to get $36,000 a month, and for May you only got $5,500."
Correct.
So if I were a retiree and I had invested this in there, would that change my lifestyle? The difference between 36,000 and 5,500 bucks?
Yeah, so I've actually got a good friend of mine who's got some investments in it as well, and they are retired,
Okay.
and I bet probably close to half of their income was coming from some of theirs, and they're in the same boat. They're getting. We figured out the other day they're getting about 15% of what they promised, so they're
Okay.
actually considering getting a part-time job now.
Wow, man, that's mind blowing to me. And in today's economy, we look at different reasons. What are some reasons why you said bleeding out cash, but I know that's kind of a overview. What are some reasons why these apartment syndicators aren't able to pay like they offered?
There's several reasons. I'll start off with the big reason, of course, is interest rates.
Okay, so when we see prime is getting moved up, or we hear that they're not going to cut interest rates, this affects this distribution just spot on, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're buying, back before they started raising rates, they were taking out loans at 75 to 80% LTV.
Okay.
And not all of them, but the majority of loans on apartments are a 5-year deal with a variable rate. Then one of the tricky things is some of these syndicators say, hey, we're buying a rate cap.
Okay.
And it's for 3 years. And
Okay,
then we
what's hold
can,
on? We explain that for us. We got an acronym uses LTV is loan to value, and then
yeah.
rate cap. Explain a rate cap to us real quick.
Okay, so if they've got it's a variable rate loan, and let's say
Okay.
it starts out at 3.5% or
Okay.
4%, and then so your rate cap means that when interest rates go up, you have a cap. It can only
Okay.
go up so high, and usually they buy them at 1 to 2 points higher than what the market is when you buy the property. So after 3 years, if you've hit that rate cap, then your monthly payments quit going up because your rate can't go up anymore.
Perfect.
But because they tell you they can renew it yearly for 2 more years because it's supposed to be a 5-year deal. But the hangup on that is, and this is one of the things that kind of caught me was, yeah, you can renew it, but the price is going to be
Oh.
reflected by today's interest rates.
Oh, so it's almost like an insurance, if you will. So
Yeah, and really, it's not as great as what it sounds because all you're doing it is exactly that. It's insurance, but you're basically paying almost as much out, for that cap, especially the more rates go. So it still kills the cash flow.
oh wow. So they can't pay because their rates have gone up, their rate cap is maxed out, and then they have to buy more insurance to make sure they can keep the rate at the new level to understand what cash flow is doing.
It's that, and then, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware. Everybody sees how much auto insurance and homeowners insurance has gone up.
Yeah.
Well, insurance on these has gone up dramatically too, and
Okay.
and property taxes.
Wow.
And then also in the last year, a lot of the deals that I have been in, and you don't really see this in the news. They always talk about rents going up, but within the last year, most apartment complexes have actually been their rates have been dropping a little bit. And
Okay.
that's because so many new builds are coming onto the market. And when they come on the market, they've got a 400 units they have to fill, they drop the rate, and, they're trying to fill it all. Well, now, if you have your apartment complexes, down the block, you're not competitive because they have a brand new building. And now, so you're having to drop.
Wow.
And so they haven't had the rent growth that they thought, right early in COVID they did, but now the pendulum swung the other way.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great insight. That's great insight. So when we talk about compared returns, and me, I like to always put pasture holdings, passive income note. I like to battle it out because we offer an 11% return. So I kind of want to go through these numbers because you're kind of the brains behind it on the back end to make sure we do the proper underwriting, we take care of the risk, and I'd like to kind of talk about that a little bit. So your multifamily preferred rate is 8%, and I'm going to drop a zero because we're competing 5.5 million versus $500,000 fund. So I'm gonna call your numbers. I'm gonna base them off of figuring them at 500,000. So the 8%, you went actual 1.2%. You should have expected a $400,000 distribution, and it was only 6,000. and then the expected monthly distribution at 500K was 33.97. Actual distribution was 510. And then had you been in a passive income note portfolio, the 11%, it would have been 46.71, and those people actually got paid the 46.71. Now, how can we do that with a passive investment and an apartment can't? So what's the differences between the portfolio and that?
Okay, well, just real quick, I would like to point out before I go on to answer that
Okay.
is those numbers are a little off because actually the multifamily on a lot of them should be a negative number. And to give you an example, I'm in an apartment fund and there's a lot of people doing capital calls.
Okay.
And
Oh, okay. So like this, you went over my head real quick. I think I know where you're going, but I want to make sure that everybody else that's listening is following along all the way. So this
okay,
number is based off the pref rate that was promised at the beginning, but in reality, with the capital calls going into these different funds, that's going to reduce what your actual distribution was because you had to give them money.
yeah, not only that is um, the amount that you may not get your money back that you invested. So even if they pay you 1%,
Oh
but
no.
then, at the end of the day,
So it's
if
an
you lose your
unrealized
investment,
loss.
it is right now. And that's for a lot of these because they're doing these capital calls. And if they aren't successful in the capital call,
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the bigger ones I'm in, they said, hey, if this is not successful, everyone will lose 100% of your investment. So yeah, they've paid out a little bit in distributions at the beginning. Now they're not paying out any, but the value of these have gone down so much that you may end up taking, up to 100% loss on some of these.
So I know I'm asking questions like I don't actually invest in apartment syndications, and I have about $550,000, and my numbers tracked right along with yours on what we're doing here. So what you're saying is, and it's one of the things that keeps me up at night. And as being an accredited investor, we're supposed to be able to see these sort of things and kind of have the crystal ball. But what you just said is probably one of the scariest things about investing with leverage, with the bank as the actual primary owner, and we're hoping the asset spits off enough money to make a distribution so we get our passive income. And if it loses its value and it goes down, our our part in the capital stack is in a different realm where banks got to be paid back first. Then, however you fall in the capital stack is where you actually get it, and there may not be none left for you when you gets to your payout in the capital stack.
And
Is that understanding that correctly?
yeah, and so what's happening is when a lot of these apartment syndicators went out and got loans, they're like I said, most usually a 5-year loan.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to refinance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back then they were doing loans at 75 to 80% of the value. So if
Okay.
you had $100 million complex, they were giving out a 75 to $80 million loan.
Okay.
Now, because things have started to go down, banks are loaning closer to 55%.
Wow, they're
So
hedging their bets. They're covering their risk.
yes. So
Okay.
now if you were in a 75% loan, now you're refinancing at a 55%, you got to come up with that other $20 million.
Or hope the value went up and it's not going up in this market.
No, cap rates on average, depending on what class apartment you're in, have gone up 1.5 to 2 points. So that's why most of these apartment complexes, depending on, what part of the country and things like that, the market's gone down anywhere from 20 to 25%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's everybody's equity.
Yeah.
So if you're forced to sell because you can't refinance, now you have to sell. You're
Okay.
taking a 20 to $25 million loss. The
Okay.
bank's still getting their 75 to 80 million back, but that 20 to 25 million was all of the investors' money.
Wow.
So that's why I'm saying these people, or some of them are saying, hey, you'll have 100% loss. Yeah, the value of the apartment complex only went down 20, 25%. But
Yeah.
that's the bank getting all their money back and the investors losing all theirs.
Okay, so with that thought process in place, and I know you said these numbers could be off because of that reason, and that was a great explanation, and it was at a level where I think all of us on here understood it, and I appreciate that. That was amazing. So how do we at Pasture Holdings, and I know this answer, and I know I'm asking it rhetorically, but I'm asking it from the eyes of an interviewer that have people listening that want to know the nitty gritty behind the curtain. So how does Pasture Holdings combat that with something like a passive income note portfolio? Like, why don't we have that risk?
Well, there's several reasons. One of them is we're not affected by interest rates,
Okay,
so we don't
why
have to
is
worry.
that?
Well, so we're buying these with cash. We're not going out and getting a loan.
Okay, so
So
in essence, we're the bank.
yes,
We're the
we're the
first.
bank.
We're
So
first in the capital stack. Our investors are.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So with interest rates, the last 2-3 years, every expert on Wall Street's been wrong.
Okay.
So you're at that mercy, and that's interest rates is something nobody can predict, and it's completely out of your control.
Okay.
So, and when you're talking about that, you're gambling a little bit, really.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is these syndicators, they're buying stuff that is on market, competing with everybody else.
Okay.
Now, some of them do have good connections with brokers and things like that, and you'll see them put out deals where they're like, hey, we bought this at 70 million, and we just got our appraisal back as at 72, and okay, that's good, whatever. But so the way ours works is we're buying at a massive discount where
Okay.
they're paying market price, we're paying well below market value. So even if the same thing happened to us and the land market dropped 20%, like the apartment complexes, well, in the apartment complex, you're looking at taking 100% loss, where it really wouldn't even phase our note portfolio.
Because you'd still be profitable. Now I'm gonna ask you to pull back the blinds a little bit, because we get on a live webinar. They want to see behind the curtains and understand kind of the proprietary due diligence process that you have in place. What kind of discount do you buy these notes at, and how are you protecting us in that? And let's just use, I want to use $100,000 sale price, and just for easy math, and then how you generate, because we build up a portfolio of these notes to basically make us risk or diversify the risk amongst several different pieces of property versus being one asset. It's multiple assets across this portfolio. I think right now it's 15 or 16. But using $100,000 example, like, how would you underwrite that, and what are you looking for on price to buy that in a discount?
Okay, so there's two steps to that. One is it has to be a quality asset first,
Okay.
and because quality assets do not, well, the borrowers pay at a lot higher rate than quality
Okay.
assets. So if you're buying a note that's on some, say, desert land out somewhere, well, if somebody gets in trouble, they're like, well, I don't care, I'm going to let that go and never go out there anyways, or whatever. So first, it has to be a quality asset that will have demand for it. Once it passes that test, then you start running the numbers. So let's say somebody's out there and they're buying a piece of land for $100,000, either for hunting and recreation, or they want to put a house on it.
Okay.
They need to have 20% down. You want them to have enough down to where if it goes bad, it's going to hurt them.
Yeah, and that's not any different than what a bank would ask, right? They'd ask somewhere for 20 to 25% down on a piece of property. So we're not doing anything out of the norm there, right?
That's correct. The only difference between us and a bank, and here's where we're safer than a bank, is $100,000 piece of property. Let's say it's a note that generates 10 to 11% interest. That bank would loan $80,000. Well, our loan's going to be for $80,000 too, but we're not paying eight. We don't have 80,000 in it. On average, we're going to pay 70 cents on the dollar. So on $100,000 piece of property, sells for 100, they put $20,000 down. It's an $80,000 loan. On average, we buy it for $56,000. So our notes that we use our investors' money of 56,000 is backed by a quality asset that's worth at least 100, and that's worst case scenario.
Yeah,
they have to put down minimal 20,000, and we're going to buy it at maximum 70%, and that's from day one. As they start making payments, that principal amount comes down, and the value generally goes up. So that's our weakest moment, is 56 cents on the dollar.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm glad you broke it down like that. And I was hoping to use easy enough money, but I know you're a math brain and you were able to figure that number out on your head. I was in my head, I was going, how is he going to figure the 80 cents on the 80,000 to figure your math? And I'm glad you've got it figured out there, because that was great. So real numbers here, in passive income note portfolios, 11% preferred annualized return. the expected distributions, the actual distributions, they all match up. What happens if somebody doesn't pay one of those notes from the perspective of our investors? Does that affect them?
No, because we're making more than 11%, of
Okay.
course. So let's say someone quits paying.
Hmm.
Well, we've got a lot of other notes that are not only paying interest that we can use to make up for that, but they're also paying principal.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we're then going to be foreclosing on that property.
Okay.
So let's go back to the $100,000 example. I said our weakest point is at the beginning. So let's assume they never make even one payment.
Hmm.
uh, we've got 56,000 in it.
Hmm.
We're going to foreclose. Let's say it cost you $4,000, which is a little high for an attorney. So
Hmm.
now we've got $60,000 in it,
Hmm.
and we can sell it for 100. Well, we just made 40.
Okay.
Well, let's take it to see. Okay, well, let's say things really go bad, like they did in the apartment thing. Market drops 20%.
Hmm.
Well, we still made $20,000.
Wow, that's amazing. So 20% on a $60,000 return is a third. So that's you still made 33% when we're talking about 1.2% preferred rate paid out. So
Yeah,
that's amazing. So why would you? So if you had to do it over again, would this be something you would have looked at a little bit harder back, 2, 3, 4 years ago?
yeah. I think the one of the things I learned is getting into it more is um, there's a lot of risk in apartments that people don't talk about. Everybody's like, hey, everybody's got to have a place to live. They act like apartments are just aren't risky,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be. One, because interest rates, which nobody can control,
Yeah.
and certain other things also. If you go in a recession and rents lower, things like that also, where none of that stuff affects us.
Yeah. One of the things that I've loved to hear is the quirkiness that the operators come up with about the cute terms about, like, one of them is cash preservation. When I say cash preservation, you think, oh, we're doing good, we're preserving this cash and we're getting bigger and richer. No, that's the way they tell you that they're not paying your preferred rate or your distribution that month. Hey, we're in cash preservation mode, so we are not paying you your money. And I sat here and I thought about it the first time I heard that term, and I was like, what are they, what is this? Like, I gave you my money, you agreed to it. We want our distribution. And then the big thing for me, I think I took away through this market, the change in the market in the multifamily, was where you sit on the capital stack. And that to me is huge, because our investors in our note portfolio, they're right in the mix on a capital stack. They hold first lien position on the asset. They're not the bank, or they are the bank, versus in a multifamily where they're not the bank. As an investor, you're not the bank. You're behind the GP, and then you got the LPs back at the back going, hey, depending on what amount you put in, are you in the A, the B, the C, the D? And then it to me is like, well, what are we doing here? And like you said, if it dropped 20% and you were at the bottom of that capital stack, your money's not, it's no money to pay you, and you're the one that's not getting it.
Correct. So most of these apartment deals, the investors are anywhere from third in the capital stack all the way down to fifth, just depending. Every syndicator does it different and things like that. But yeah, so and ours, you're up at the top. And that was another thing. A lot of these syndicators came out with kind of a hybrid system
Okay.
where they did a A and a B stack, where if you're in the A stack, you're only anywhere, they would only accept 10 to 20% of all investors could be in the A stack. So you're at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying out 9%. And they're big. When they're trying to market that, they said, hey, we're going to pay you 9%, but it's basically guaranteed because the other investors, which are the B stack, which make up 80 to 90, have to lose 100% of their money before you ever lose a dollar. So you're like, well, hey man, this sounds great. This is
Yeah.
basically a free 9%.
Uh-huh.
Well, guess what? That class, the A class, they're not getting paid either.
Yeah.
So
The market shifted more than they could predict there.
yeah.
Wow. Now we've beat them up a little bit, and so if and I want to take your brain, because you're super smart, and I want to take your brain and go back. If multifamily is still something you would is it something you still would invest for in the future?
Yes, I just do it differently.
Okay, cool. What's one or two things that you would do differently if you had to make that call today?
Well, one thing I've learned is, and you take Ashcroft, for example, they are extremely good at managing apartment complexes.
Yeah.
And, they're very good on getting all the units rehabbed, keeping their occupancy high. And I've noticed also they do really good at pushing rents better than others. I mean, they really do manage apartments well,
Okay.
but they weren't able to predict interest rates just like everybody else couldn't.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good you are at managing, managing the apartments if your rates go up. So to counter that, I would say in the future, I want a fixed rate loan,
Okay.
and I've seen some of those offering that, but that still doesn't get rid of all your risk because one I saw that just came out. It's actually a decent looking deal. It has a fixed rate loan for 5 years, but if they're wanting to sell it at the end of 5 years, well, it could be just like now. If the market dropped 20, 25% of 5 years, yeah, you were still cash flowing. But when they go to sell that asset, which is where most of your profit comes in, the profit's not going to be there.
Yeah.
So you can mitigate part of the interest rate risk, but
Okay.
not all of it. And then if you don't want to sell and your 5 year term is up, well, now you're going to have to get a new loan at a higher rate.
Wow. Okay,
So
great.
I would look for a long term, like at least 7 years fixed rate with an exit strategy of 5 years.
Okay, great. That's great insight. I think that's great. Anything else you could think of that the people listening today would want to know, comparatively head to head? That's the thing I like about this actual webinar is we're going head to head with it. And we're saying, hey, if I had this, if I had that 500K was huge, just seeing just the disparity in that. And then your story on the retirees thinking about getting another part-time job because interest rates didn't cut or they didn't predict it, and that risk there, that was huge. But anything else you could think of that we'd want to know?
No, I think just the biggest thing is even if you take interest rates, cost of insurance, rents can go down. You take all those that we don't have to worry about. And even if you throw all that away, if you're looking for something that's safer, they're still at market value when they're buying. We're at 56 cents on the dollar
Wow. Yeah.
on a quality asset. That is what makes, that's what when you're running a note portfolio, that's what you have to look for. You have to buy a very high quality asset, but you want to be substantially under market value.
It's huge. Huge. Cool. Well, Josh, as always, we thank you. I'm gonna leave it on for a little bit because I want to get some questions in here. If there's anybody that has any questions, I want you to put it in the box. I will read them out loud. You can go anonymous if you don't want your name. And then you got Josh or myself here to answer them. This is kind of where the interactive piece comes in. And again, we thank you all for tuning in today. You can always email us at info@pastureholdings.com or book a one-on-one call with any of us at pastureholdings.com. The website's always changing, getting better. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. There's some new names and some old names here. Again, we appreciate all of you, and we hope to see you on the next webinar in the series. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to us, and we enjoy having those conversations. So again, Josh, thank you very, very much. We will see you. I'll see you later, but we'll see them
Okay.
on another day, man. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Thank you.